Hi, this is Don McAllister, and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. In episode 611, I covered the initial setup and configuration of my new Synology network-attached storage device and demonstrated how to access your NAS via the DS Finder iOS app. There is an overwhelming amount of functionality provided for free with the Synology NAS, so in this tutorial I'll be focusing in on centralizing your data storage and utilizing some of the free tools available to both backup and synchronize your data between different devices. In effect, creating your own private cloud.